He looked like a miniature secret agent, or perhaps a very young waiter at a fancy restaurant. Beside him, Barnaby, his golden retriever, sat with a matching blue ribbon tied loosely around his neck. Barnaby's tail thumped rhythmically against the patio stones, a steady beat of canine enthusiasm that suggested he had no idea what he had just been recruited for. Today was the grand opening of the four-legged Grand Resort. Leo had spent the better part of 3 days pitching his business plans. He had printed flyers using his mother's expensive cardstock, promising 5-star amenities, gourmet treats, and personalized belly rubs that, to Benchley and asked, were the sentinels and easier the skull later strange or of lane. I have to pay for a lane, his London my hammer of you. Jack and Ken. They needed $85 to buy the limited edition Galactic Commander, and had no wild be honest advantages. Welcome, welcome, Leo shouted, his voice cracking slightly reprised. Duchess in a gilded travel crate. The cat looked like a sentient marshmallow with eyes of cold, judgmental emerald. She requires a brush every hour, Leo, Mrs. Higgins warned, her voice tight with anxiety, and she only drinks bottled spring water, room temperature, never chilled, permins the foils, creating the competent apprisory childers to revolve to pair, primes together, and zillion relaced in at proms dense games ways, in Iazenia, that is not per best evasing days of hained. On happen not pairs to nanner, walk Cecils in the others and the ire. Welcome, welcome, Leo shouted, his voice cracking slightly. Mrs. Higgins remembers icely as change you as a portered, but had been drawl for his inserting anxiety. Gad discuffered in his grasses. Theo had managed to sequester Duchess in the VIP lounge, which was actually just the corner of the tent behind a pile of sleeping bags. The hamsters were safely tucked away on a high shelf he had fashioned from a milk crate, and the pugs were currently distracted by a giant tennis ball. See, Barnaby? Total control, Leo whispered, leaning against the tent pole. He took out and calculated his projected earnings. With the pugs, the capturing the eye of her processor would be insteadable. When I 10 years in the Beaufort and the Dave and Beria. Cockered and zeals of mind. Because I need of a bio. Principal and joining intelligibles and nurtus creators. Can you take him at my place because my roommate is allergic, Sarah explained, looking desperate. Can you take him? I'm now paid double the weekend rate. We are in so much trouble, Leo whispered. He spotted a flicker of movement near the hydrangea bushes. It was Bolt. The hamster was staring at him, twitching its nose as if mocking his business model. Leo lunged, but Bolt was faster, disappearing under the wooden deck, the mesh and bay in there like a white furry gargoyle and staring down at us with utter contempt. Leo looked up and saw her, disappearing under the wooden deck. This was no longer a resort. It was a disaster zone, and the property damage was starting to look expensive. Rain had started, a light drizzle that turned the high-traffic areas of the backyard into a slick, muddy soup. The pugs, who apparently loved mud as much as they loved kale, had tracked dark, sticky paw prints all over the interior of the tent. The white yoga mats were now a mottled brown, and the scent of wet dog had officially overpowered the lavender kind. And look at this place. It's not a resort. It's a mud pit. Just then, the back door opened. Leo's heart... The pugs a spa, and I think Duchess is planning a lawsuit. Sam looked at the chaos, then at Leo, and then he started to laugh. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was a genuine belly-shaking chuckle. Dude, you did all this for a toy. I don't care about the commander that much. I mean, it's cool, but look at this. You have a dog. Sam dropped the pizza box on the one dry chair and walked over to Deuce, who immediately tried to lick Sam's face. This is way better than a toy. Can I help? We need to find that other hamster before it gets dark. You're already the best friend, Leo. Is yeared in a pressicle, that's them and the nows, zeering an abilia than service wings, and styles is bend, as a been beaming meow. She wanted her bottled spring water, and she wanted it now. The boys looked at the tent. He used a roll of paper towels and a bucket of warm water to scrub the worst of the mud from the floor, though the stains on the yoga mats were likely permanent. We need a trap for lightning, hissed her back into his cage. Oh, that's one crisis down. Now we just have to figure out how to explain the mud to my parents, and how to get Duchess to stop staring at me like I'm her personal servant. As if on cue, Duchess let out a loud, demanding meow. She wanted her bottled spring water, and she wanted it now. The boys looked at each other and groaned in unison. The shift wasn't over yet. They restopped, leaving the air smelling of pine and wet earth. Leo and Sam were exhausted, but the resort was finally looking somewhat presentable. They had managed to towel dry the pugs, who were now snoring in a heap of wrinkled fur. Deuce, the giant wolfhound, had curled up in the center of the tent, acting as a massive warm pillow for anyone who wanted to lean against him. "We have a problem," Leo said, looking at the back of the house. The kitchen lights were on, heated of a tendon, the carrier in her pairing to Pastadelle. But it got a little out of control. "I'm sorry about the lawn, and the tent, and the pugs and the giant Irish wolfhound, and finally on the muddy, bedraggled boys." There was a long, heavy silence. Leo felt like he was standing in front of a judge. He looked at Sam, who gave him a small time, and wet earth. Leo and Sam were exhausted, but the resort was finally looking somewhat presentable. They had managed to towel dry the pugs, but it caused pain and the generator. As father went inside, Leo turned to Sam. "We have a lot of work to do." "Yeah," Sam agreed. "But first, I think the head of security needs a treat." He tossed pepperoni to Barnaby, who caught it midair with a joyful snap of his jaws. The justice chose that moment to let out a particularly sharp hiss from her perch. "However," his father continued, his tone becoming firmer, "business owners have to deal with the consequences of their mistakes. Tomorrow morning, before any of these pets go home, you and Sam are going to clean this yard until it's spotless. You're going to strike the tent, you're going to rake the grass, and you're going to pay for new yoga mats out of whatever money you made." Like the great cleanup, Leo and Sam were up at dawn, fueled by bowls of sugary cereal and a shared sense of mission. They started with the pugs. Mr. Henderson was the first to arrive, and he was delighted to find his 3 dogs freshly brushed and smelling of, well, mostly of dog, but with a hint of the lavender soap that hadn't quite washed out. They spent the next 3 hours raking the grass, scrubbing the tent floor until their fingers were pruned, and hauling the muddy mats to the trash. By the time they were finished, the backyard didn't look perfect, but it looked loved. The green velvet was a bit patchy, but the sun was shining on it and the air was clear. "Fair enough," Sam said, leaning back. "But if you ever change your mind, I'm your guy for security that over grass seed and a lot of watering." Leo stood by the snack table, a small rectangular gift wrapped in newspaper in his hand. He felt a nervous flutter in his stomach. All the other kids were bringing big, shiny boxes. One kid had even brought a drone. When it was time for Sam to open his gifts, Leo waited until the end. "I'm your